When giants fall, the void of space stretched endlessly in all directions as the Korthik research vessel, Sovereign Knowledge, drifted through the outer rim territories. Dr. HFY adjusted his six-fingered grip on the scanning console, his scaled hide rippling with excitement as the sensors detected something extraordinary floating in the darkness ahead. "Commander Vorth, you need to see this immediately," HFY called across the bridge, his voice carrying the particular tone that always meant discovery. The tall, battle-scarred military officer approached with measured steps, his 4 eyes focusing on the display screen. There it was, tumbling slowly through space like a wounded beast. A human warship, completely dark and apparently lifeless. The vessel stretched nearly 300 meters from bow to stern, its angular hull scarred with what looked like recent battle damage. Most importantly to the research team, it showed no signs of active power systems or life support. Tech specialist Quinder scuttled over on his 8 mechanical legs, his cybernetic implants already interfacing with the ship's scanning array. "Initial readings confirm it's definitely human construction," he reported in his synthetic voice. "The design matches intelligence reports from the border conflicts. Appears to be a destroyer-class vessel, designation unknown." Commander Vorth studied the tactical display with professional interest. For months, the Korthik Empire had been puzzled by human military performance in the ongoing border skirmishes. Despite their apparently primitive technology, human ships kept achieving surprising victories against superior Korthik forces. This could be the breakthrough they needed to understand their enemy. "Life signs?" Vorth asked, though the sensors had already provided that answer. "Completely negative," Quinder confirmed. "Whatever happened here, the crew either evacuated or perished. The ship has been drifting for approximately 72 standard hours, based on trajectory analysis." Dr. HFY felt his research instincts awakening. In his 40 years of studying alien species, he had never had the opportunity to examine an intact human vessel. Usually, human ships either retreated intact or were destroyed completely in battle. Finding one simply abandoned was unprecedented. "We're going aboard," HFY decided, his authority as senior researcher overriding any military concerns. "This represents the greatest intelligence opportunity we've had since first contact with the human species." The Sovereign Knowledge carefully maneuvered closer to the drifting human ship. Their pilot, following standard protocols, maintained a safe distance while the research team prepared their equipment. Each member of the boarding party had specific objectives for the mission. ZEX HAI would focus on biological systems and crew areas, searching for insights into human psychology and physiology. Commander Vorth would examine weapons and tactical systems, looking for explanations of human military success. Quinder would concentrate on technology and engineering, hoping to find gaps in human capabilities that the Empire could exploit. The human ship's identification gradually became readable as they approached. Terra's Might, Registry TFS4471, commanded by Captain Sarah Chun, according to their database. Intelligence files showed the vessel had vanished during a patrol mission 3 days earlier. The Empire had assumed it was destroyed by one of their patrol fleets. "Interesting," Vorth mused as he reviewed the tactical data. This ship was reported in a completely different sector when it disappeared. How did it end up here? Probably limped away from battle, and the crew abandoned it when systems failed, Quinder suggested. "Humans are known for their unwillingness to fight to the death. They prefer preservation over honor." A boarding shuttle sealed against the human ships. Airlock with a satisfying thunk. Environmental suits were mandatory for this type of operation, as alien atmospheres could be lethal. The 3 researchers checked their equipment one final time before cycling through the airlock into the human vessel. The corridors inside were pitch black except for their portable lighting. Emergency power had clearly failed completely, leaving the ship as cold and lifeless as the void outside. The air was stale but breathable, according to their sensors, though they maintained full environmental protection as a precaution. Architecture is remarkably crude, Vorth observed as they made their way toward the bridge. Wide corridors, basic lighting, no artistic elements whatsoever. Pure function over form. The bridge area was larger than expected, with multiple workstations arranged around a central command chair. Personal items were scattered about, suggesting a hasty evacuation. A half-empty container of what appeared to be human coffee sat on the captain's station, alongside a small rectangular device that Quinder identified as a personal communication unit. Everything confirms rapid abandonment, Zexhai noted, recording his observations. Crew left in such haste that they didn't even secure personal belongings. Quinder located the main computer core in the engineering section and began connecting his analysis equipment. The human computer systems appeared surprisingly advanced for such a primitive species, utilizing quantum processing matrices similar to Corthic technology, but with interesting modifications. Their computers are more sophisticated than expected, he reported. Still inferior to our systems, but not as primitive as intelligence suggested. The Weapons Control Center revealed exactly what Commander Vorth had expected to find. Simple kinetic projectile systems dominated the armament, with some basic energy weapons for defensive purposes. Nothing that seemed particularly threatening, compared to standard Corthic military hardware. Projectile weapons are their primary armament, Vorth confirmed as he downloaded tactical data. Crude but effective at short range. Energy weapons appear to be older technology, probably 50 years behind our current systems. The three researchers worked methodically through the ship over the next several hours. The fusion reactor was cold and inactive, its design competent but unremarkable. Life support systems were robust but basic, using technology the Corthic Empire had surpassed decades earlier. What struck all three team members was the overwhelming redundancy built into every human system. Backup systems had backup systems, and even those had manual overrides. It was as if the humans expected their own technology to fail constantly and had designed everything with that assumption. "Look at this," Quinder called out from an engineering station. The main computer core has massive processing power that isn't being utilized. They're running at maybe 10% capacity, even when fully operational. Wasteful design, Vorth. Agreed. Either they don't understand their own technology, or they built systems far more powerful than necessary. The pattern continued throughout their examination. Navigation systems that could calculate jumps across the galaxy were installed on a ship with limited fuel capacity. Weapons had multiple targeting systems when one would suffice. Even the crew quarters were built like military bunkers rather than simple living spaces. They designed everything expecting the worst possible scenario, Zexhai observed. Maximum redundancy, maximum protection, maximum overcapacity in every system. The approach was inefficient and expensive, but it did explain some aspects of human military performance. Their ships could continue operating long after Corthic vessels would have been forced to retreat for repairs. They could fight extended battles because they carried enormous amounts of spare parts and ammunition as the day progressed. The research team felt increasingly confident in their assessment. Human technology was primitive but over-engineered. Human tactics relied on brute force rather than elegance. Most importantly, humans appeared to be several decades behind Corthic capabilities in most critical areas. Preliminary conclusion, Zexhai dictated to his recording device. Human species represents minimal long-term threat to empire expansion. Technology is crude but functional. Military doctrine emphasizes quantity over quality. Recommend continued surveillance but reduced threat assessment. What none of the researchers noticed were the tiny sensors that had been monitoring their presence since the moment they stepped aboard. Deep within the ship's computer core, systems that appeared completely dead were actually running on minimum power, watching everything the aliens did. The Terra's might had been designed by Chief Engineer Maria Santos with exactly this scenario in mind. Every human ship in the fleet carried hidden protocols that would activate if aliens ever attempted to board and examine human technology. The ship was not abandoned. It was bait. As the Corthic team continued their analysis, satisfied with their discoveries and confident in their conclusions, they remained unaware that every word they spoke was being recorded. Every piece of equipment they used was being scanned and analyzed. Every technique they employed was being studied by systems they couldn't detect. Captain Sarah Chun watched from her hidden command center deep within the ship's core, surrounded by screens showing every movement the aliens made. Her crew of 50 specialists monitored the intruders from concealed positions throughout the vessel, ready to spring into action at her signal. Phase 1 complete, she whispered into her communicator. They've taken the bait completely. Beginning Phase 2 activation. Hidden throughout the ship, systems that had appeared dead began drawing power from carefully shielded backup reactors. Weapons that seemed primitive started charging, with energy levels that would have terrified the Corthic researchers if they had detected them. The trap was ready to close. Quinder was the first to notice something wrong with his readings. The power signatures he was detecting from the ship's reactor didn't match his previous scans. According to his instruments, energy levels were rising throughout the vessel. Commander, he called urgently, I'm detecting power fluctuations. The ship's reactor appears to be coming online. Vorth rushed to the tactical station and began running his own scans. The results made his blood run cold. Energy readings were climbing rapidly throughout the human vessel. Systems they thought were permanently offline were beginning to activate. How is this possible? Zexai demanded. Our scans showed complete power failure. The lights in the corridor suddenly flickered to life, bathing the aliens in harsh white illumination. Throughout the ship, the hum of active systems began to fill the silence that had seemed so absolute just moments before. We need to leave, Vorth stated with military decisiveness. Now. But as they rushed toward their boarding shuttle, they discovered that the airlock had sealed itself. The human ship's computer systems, no longer pretending to be inactive, had taken control of the docking connection. A voice echoed through the ship's communication system, speaking in perfectly clear Corthic language. Attention alien intruders. This is Captain Sarah Chun of the Terran fleet ship Terra's Might. You are now prisoners aboard a human vessel. Please remain calm while we explain your situation. The three researchers stared at each other in growing horror as the reality of their circumstances began to sink in. They weren't examining an abandoned human ship. They had walked directly into a carefully prepared trap. Humanity's True faced the corridor around the three Corthic researchers, suddenly filled with the soft blue glow of active human technology. Display screens flickered to life along the walls, showing tactical readouts and system status reports that painted a very different picture than what they had observed during their examination. Captain Sarah Chun's voice continued over the ship's communication system, her tone conversational, but carrying an undertone of absolute authority. I imagine you're feeling somewhat confused right now. That's understandable. You've just discovered that human beings are considerably more sophisticated than your intelligence reports suggested. Commander Vorth instinctively reached for his sidearm, only to find that his weapon would not respond to his commands. The human ship's systems had somehow interfaced with their equipment and disabled it remotely. Your weapons and communication devices have been temporarily deactivated, Captain Chun explained, apparently monitoring their actions. This is for everyone's safety, including yours. Please proceed to Observation Deck C. You'll find direction indicators on the walls. Dr. Zeitshai watched in fascination and growing fear as holographic arrows appeared on the corridor walls, pointing toward what he assumed was their destination. The level of technology required to interface with Korthic equipment and override. Their systems was far beyond anything they had believed humans possessed. "This is impossible," Quinder muttered as his cybernetic implants struggled to process what was happening. "Our intelligence indicated that human technology was decades behind our capabilities." "Your intelligence was wrong," came Captain Chun's voice. "Or rather, it was exactly what we wanted your intelligence to believe." The three aliens made their way through corridors that now hummed with active systems, what they had earlier dismissed as crude human design suddenly revealed hidden complexity. Wall panels slid aside to reveal sophisticated monitoring equipment. Floor plates glowed with power conduits that had been completely invisible during their initial examination. Observation Deck C turned out to be a large viewing chamber with floor-to-ceiling windows that looked out into space. But it wasn't the view that captured the researchers' attention. It was the woman standing calmly in the center of the room, wearing the blue uniform of a human starship captain. Captain Sarah Chun was smaller than any of the three Korthek researchers, but her presence filled the room with quiet authority. Her dark hair was pulled back in a regulation style, and her brown eyes held the kind of intelligence that came from years of strategic thinking. "Welcome aboard the Terra's Might," she said, gesturing for them to take seats at a conference table that had apparently been prepared for this meeting. "I apologize for the deception, but it was necessary to obtain accurate intelligence about Korthic capabilities and intentions." Commander Vorth remained standing, his military training keeping him alert despite their precarious situation. "You've committed an act of war by taking Empire citizens prisoner, have I?" Captain Chun asked, with genuine curiosity. "Your ship entered human space without authorization and boarded a human vessel with the intention of stealing military secrets. In most legal systems, that would be considered piracy rather than legitimate research." Dr. Zeitshai found himself studying the human captain with professional interest despite their circumstances. Her behavior patterns didn't match Korthic intelligence profiles of human psychology. She displayed none of the emotional volatility or aggressive posturing that their Zenith psychology experts had predicted. "You speak our language perfectly," he observed. "Our reports indicated that humans had limited translation capabilities." "Your reports were based on information we provided through carefully managed first contact scenarios," Captain Chun replied. "We've been studying your language, culture, and technology for much longer than you realize." The captain activated a holographic display that showed a detailed cutaway view of the ship they were standing in. But this wasn't the primitive vessel they thought they had been examining. The true Terra's Might was revealed as a sophisticated, technological marvel with advanced systems hidden throughout its structure. "Every component you examined was real," she explained, "but it was also carefully selected to present a specific impression of human capabilities. The projectile weapons you analyzed, they're capable of firing projectiles at relativistic velocities when powered by our actual reactor output. The computer systems you thought were primitive, they're quantum neural hybrids running at a tiny fraction of capacity to maintain the illusion." Quinder's mechanical components whirred as he processed this information. "The reactor readings we detected were from a backup fusion cell running at minimum power to maintain basic life support for the crew hidden throughout the ship," Captain Chun confirmed. "Our main reactor is a zero-point energy system that your sensors couldn't detect because it operates on principles your science hasn't discovered yet." The implications were staggering. If the humans possessed technology that advanced everything the Korthic Empire believed about the balance of power in this region of space was wrong, why reveal this to us now? Commander Vorth demanded. You could have maintained the deception indefinitely. Because the situation has changed, Captain, Chun replied, her expression growing more serious. Our intelligence networks have detected Korthic fleet movements suggesting preparation for a major offensive against human space. We decided it was time to provide your leadership with more accurate information about what such an attack would actually face. The holographic display changed to show a tactical overview of the local star systems. Red icons marked Korthic military positions, while blue symbols showed human fleet deployments. But the scale was completely different from what Korthic intelligence believed. Human forces were present in systems where they were thought to have no presence at all. 147 ships identical to this one are currently positioned throughout Korthic space, Captain Chun announced calmly. Each one carries a crew of specialists who have been gathering intelligence on your military capabilities, industrial capacity, and strategic planning for the past 8 months. The 3 researchers sat in stunned silence as the reality of their situation became clear. They hadn't discovered an abandoned human ship. They had been captured by a deep cover intelligence operation that had completely penetrated Korthic territory. Every border skirmish your forces have engaged in was a carefully orchestrated test of your tactical doctrines and weapon systems, the captain continued. We allowed you to achieve certain victories to maintain the illusion that your technology was superior. Meanwhile, we were learning everything we needed to know about how your military actually functions. Dr. HFY found his voice first. What do you intend to do with us? Return you to your people with a message, Captain Chun replied. The Korthic Empire is welcome to continue existing peacefully in your current territory. Trade relationships are possible, perhaps even beneficial for both our species. But any attempt to expand into human space will be met with a level of resistance that your current intelligence projections have not prepared you for. The holographic display changed once more, showing what appeared to be a massive human fleet, assembled in deep space. Hundreds of ships, each one larger and more advanced than anything in the Korthic Navy, hung motionless in formation. The 3rd human fleet has been monitoring your empire's activities from beyond your sensor range, Captain Chun explained. They're prepared to respond immediately if your leadership makes the wrong decision about future territorial expansion. Commander Vorth studied the display with a tactical expert's eye for detail. If even half of what he was seeing was real, the Korthic Empire's military advantages had been completely imaginary. You're saying that humans have been deliberately appearing weaker than you actually are? Deception is one of humanity's oldest and most effective survival strategies, Captain Chun confirmed. When faced with a potentially superior opponent, we prefer to be underestimated rather than challenge them directly. It gives us time to study, plan, and prepare appropriate responses. The captain gestured toward the viewing windows, where the 3 researchers could now see human ships materializing out of apparent empty space. Advanced stealth systems deactivated to reveal an entire battle group that had been present, but invisible throughout their examination of Eterra's might. Your return shuttle has been equipped with detailed recordings of everything you've experienced here today, Captain Chun announced. Your leadership will have complete documentation of actual human capabilities. What they do with that information will determine the future relationship between our species. Quinder's cybernetic implants had been frantically trying to analyze the human technology around them, but every scan attempt was being blocked by sophisticated countermeasures. Why show us this? Why not maintain the deception? Because deception only works when your opponents don't know they're being deceived, Captain Chun replied. We've learned what we needed to learn about your capabilities. Now it's time for your people to understand ours. The 3 Korthic researchers were escorted back to their shuttle by human crew members, who had been monitoring their every move during the supposed abandoned ship examination. Each crew member displayed the kind of professional competence that came from extensive training and advanced technology. As their shuttle detached from the Terra's might and began its journey back to Korvax space, Dr. HFY found himself fundamentally reconsidering everything he thought he knew about human beings. They weren't primitive survivors who had stumbled into space travel. They were strategic thinkers who had carefully cultivated that impression while developing capabilities far beyond what their enemies imagined possible. The message they carried back to the Korvax Empire was simple but profound. Humanity was not the weak, technologically inferior species that intelligence reports had suggested. They were a sophisticated civilization that had been studying their neighbors while pretending to be something they were not. The border conflicts that had given the Korvax military such confidence were revealed as elaborate intelligence-gathering exercises designed to assess enemy capabilities while revealing nothing of human true strength. Every victory the Empire thought it had won was actually a carefully managed defeat that served human strategic purposes. As their shuttle crossed into Korvax territory, Commander Vorth began preparing his report for High Command. The Empire's expansion plans would need to be completely reconsidered. The humans weren't prey to be conquered. They were a potential threat that had been hiding in plain sight. The age of Korvax dominance in this region of space might be coming to an end, replaced by a balance of power that would require diplomacy rather than conquest. It was a humbling realization for a military officer who had spent his career believing in the superiority of his own species. Behind them, the human fleet faded back into invisibility, waiting patiently to see what choice the Korvax Empire would make with the information they had been given. The next move belonged to the aliens, but the humans had made it clear that they were prepared for any decision their neighbors might reach. The deception protocol had served its purpose. Now came the test of whether two very different species could coexist in the same corner of the galaxy without destroying each other in the process. Asterisk.